Hey everyone, my name is Trey Yingst. I'm the chief foreign correspondent for Fox News, and we are joining you today from across the Fox News social media platforms. Whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, X, Instagram, I'll be answering some of your questions today about what's happening in the Middle East, specifically looking at the situation in Iran. Over the past 2.5 weeks, my team and I in the Middle East have been covering this story each and every day to bring our viewers on Fox News a closer look at what's happening on the ground across this region. And so I'm going to give you a quick brief of what we know today, where things stand in the region, and then you can put questions in the comments below and I'll answer as many as I can. Right now, we know that things are changing very quickly in the region. Iranian security forces were cracking down over the weekend on demonstrators who were marching and protesting not only in the streets of the Iranian capital of Tehran, but across the country. As part of that crackdown, Iranian officials not only were using tear gas and live ammunition on demonstrators, but they cut off the internet access for Iran, making it incredibly difficult to get information out and to contact people inside. Now, those who had Starlink terminals and could connect through a satellite were able to get some images and video out of Iran, and they also were able to speak with us about what the situation looks like. And so I was able to connect with people in the capital of Tehran, in the city of Isfahan, a city just to the south of Tehran with more than 2 million people, further in western Iran in the Kurdish areas, to get an understanding of just how widespread these demonstrations are. And so we've been gathering more information. And remember, there's been this back and forth with President Trump threatening the Iranian regime, telling them, if you kill demonstrators, there will be consequences. And the Iranian regime often laughed off those threats. We heard last night from Iran's foreign minister, who was on special report with Bret Baier, and he spoke about the situation and made a lot of claims without any sort of facts behind them in terms of what's happening on the ground and who is responsible. All indications are that thousands of people have been killed by Iranian security forces, by members of the IRGC. And of course, the Iranians are looking to push the blame other places. But we do know the Trump administration is still considering options. In about half an hour, the president is going to receive a closed press intelligence briefing where he'll meet with his national security team and top intelligence officials to get an understanding of where things are at today. There were some indications of possible military action last night. The Iranians briefly closed their airspace. They issued what's called a notice to airmen. Ultimately, that notice was lifted in the morning, but for a brief period of time overnight, only international flights that had pre-approval could fly through Iranian airspace. And again, this is an indication, along with some other indications, that military action could have been imminent. There was another indicator from the Al-Udeid Air Base in Qatar, the largest American base in the region, where you saw not only U.S. tankers, but also personnel evacuating. This is a base that the Iranians hit in response to the U.S. strikes last June. So a lot of things to take in here. Remember, wherever you're joining us from, if you're just joining right now, my name is Trey Yingst. I'm the chief foreign correspondent for Fox News. Whether you're on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, be sure to follow and subscribe to the Fox channel. And I'll be able to answer all of your questions in the comments below. So our first question comes from one of the viewers. It says, is the Trump administration going to intervene, or is that unlikely? Right now, we don't know. According to White House officials, all options remain on the table. The president indicated in a post to Truth Social this morning that he was watching reporting on our channel and saw that the Iranians have committed to not hanging people who previously were arrested as part of this crackdown. Now, whether or not they will make good on that promise is still up in the air, but there are real concerns from the administration about this crackdown and what it means for the thousands of people also that were arrested and whether or not they will have any sort of fair trial. We have a few other questions here. One is, what about the UN intervening in the situation in Iran? The quick answer is that the UN Security Council is meeting today in what is basically an emergency session to discuss the issue of Iran. So we expect to get more information after that. There are a lot of requests in the comments looking for help from the Trump administration. People are repeatedly asking President Trump to get involved. And we've heard this sentiment from protesters that we talked to, including a man who was able to leave on a commercial flight and then spoke with Fox News. We had to blur his face and alter his voice so that we could protect his identity. The next question here, are thousands still protesting in the streets, or have things settled down over the last 24 hours? Amid this crackdown, We know the demonstrations have gotten far smaller. Reports indicate that overnight there were very few locations of protests in Iran because of the fear that people have after facing live ammunition and a crackdown that included thousands of people being arrested who are still being held by the Iranian regime. The next question is, how do we know the Iranian regime did stop the killing of demonstrators? Again, it's very difficult to get information out of Iran, and so we have to take each and every day, one day at a time in our reporting, and we are doing what we can to get information. We are literally working around the clock to bring you, our viewers, the latest information on the ground in Iran. And they can cut the internet, they can cut the phone lines. We will still find a way to get information because this is what we do. We report the news and be a voice for the voiceless. The next question is, why are aircraft carriers in the South China Sea redirected to the Persian Gulf? We saw those reports. Initially, we're going to still attribute that to reports. I don't believe that our team had that independently confirmed, but we did see those reports about movement of an aircraft carrier, at least one strike group. The next question is Irfan Soltani still alive? Iranian officials say yes. Irfan Soltani is a 26-year-old who was arrested on January 8th, one of the demonstrators who the regime said they were going to execute. They told his family they were going to execute without a trial, without any sort of judicial process. Once President Trump issued his statement saying there would be consequences for the regime, it appears they've backed off on that threat for now. The next question is, have any other countries in the region spoken out about the massacres? A lot of countries have. We heard, you may have seen in our reporting on Fox News, European countries like the Germans and the French have spoken out about the killing of demonstrators. Again, if you're just tuning in right now, my name is Trey Yingst. I'm the chief foreign correspondent for Fox News, and we are covering the story right now from the Middle East, looking at the situation on the ground in Iran. And I encourage you to follow us across all social media platforms. And of course, share this video. If you're watching right now, be sure to share this video so that your audience can be informed about what's happening on the ground in Iran. The next question is about do you have any updated numbers on casualties? And the updated numbers that we have, according to human rights organizations, are around 2,500 people. The true number is expected to be far higher, but again, it's incredibly difficult to get information confirmed on the ground out of Iran. And so we have to rely on these human rights organizations who are doing what they can to get confirmed numbers from different areas. But I can tell you, having talked to Iranians across the country, there is a death toll not just in the capital of Tehran, but in a variety of different locations. Someone asked, if the Iranian regime falls, what will that mean for the Middle East? Well, look, there are a lot of implications because we know that the Iranian regime is what many people have described as an octopus with tentacles across the Middle East in places like Yemen, where they support the Houthis who have fired on Israel. They support Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, the Iran-backed Iraqi and Syrian Shia militias, and a number of other organizations across the region. And so if they were to collapse, it would have a ripple effect in many different ways. But we're very far from that right now. And officials in Israel and in the United States have all said just that. Right now, it is 10:28 a.m. Eastern Time, where we're broadcasting our team in New York and Washington, D.C. We are right now in the Middle East. But in 2 minutes, I'm going to be able to reveal some new information to you because there is an embargo that lifts on some information that we have from the Trump administration about economic action against Iran, and I'll be able to give you in just about 2 minutes that information. I can read it to you here live. So again, if you are just tuning in, my name is Trey Yingst. I'm the chief foreign correspondent for Fox News. We are reporting right now from the Middle East, as we have been doing for the past almost 8 years. And the next question is, what is the likelihood that the U.S. conducts a strike against Iran? We don't know the likelihood. The reality is the Trump administration has a variety of different options on the table, and they're able to choose. And that is why the president is getting that intelligence briefing in just about 30 minutes, where he will make decisions about what comes next in the Middle East. Someone asked, does Iran have the capability to strike the U.S. or U.S. bases outside of the Middle East? They do have the ability to strike U.S. bases. That is why some personnel evacuated temporarily from the Al Udeid base in Qatar. It has about 10,000 U.S. personnel there, and that's a base that was hit before in June of 2025 after the U.S. strikes that targeted Iran's nuclear facilities. And there are a number of other bases in places across the Gulf and the Middle East that could be targeted. And of course, Israel remains on high alert following the 12-day war last June between Israel and Iran, where we were reporting from this city of Tel Aviv, and there were Iranian ballistic missiles raining down. And so air defense systems here are on high alert, and of course officials here are watching closely about what comes next in the region. So it's now 10:30 a.m. Eastern time, and I'm going to tell you that information that just got released by the Trump administration. It was embargoed until 10:30 a.m., and I can now read you that information. I'm going to bring it to you right now, just as it is breaking. Secretary Bessent announces sanctions against architects of Iran's brutal crackdown on peaceful protest. Again, the Treasury Department has just announced new sanctions on those linked to the planning of this crackdown against Iranian demonstrators. This is quite a lengthy press release that we received earlier today that was under embargo, but there are a number of names of commanders from the IRGC and other officials and organizations that appear to be linked not just in Iran, but also in the region. Some UAE-based companies and one UK-based company on this list that, according to this press release, these are what the Treasury Department is calling financial front companies that are supporting in some ways. So again, we're breaking that news to you here now on social media across Fox platforms that there are new sanctions against those linked to the Iranian regime and the crackdown on these protesters. Someone asked why only economic steps and what did the sanctions mean? Look, part of the reason that these demonstrations erupted initially in Iran in late December had to do with a poor economic situation. The Iranian currency is collapsing. There are poor living standards for the Iranian people, and there are water shortages in places like Tehran, the Iranian capital. And so these economic sanctions put pressure on the Iranian regime, and that's part of what the United States is trying to do, and what officials have told us will be a multi-front approach. Remember, there are a lot of options for the Trump administration to respond. They can do things like economic sanctions. They can do cyber attacks. They can take what people are calling kinetic action, airstrikes, or missile strikes. There are a variety of options on the table for the Trump administration, and the reality is we don't know how they will unfold. Oftentimes, economic sanctions are used before or after or during even military operations and activity. And so we have to just wait and see how this unfolds and continue to report each and every day on the information that we can get. Again, you can put any questions that you have in the comments below. One of the questions that we have here: how much has the Iranian currency devalued recently? Amid this tension, it has continued to devalue. We can get you the specific numbers and add those to one of our reports on Fox. I don't have them in front of me, but amid this tension, there has been a lot of concern, and one part has to do with the fact that the Iranians shut down their country's internet, and so it made it very difficult to do business in the country. One person on the ground in Tehran was telling us that vendors in the Grand Bazaar in the Iranian capital of Tehran were going around asking people who had Starlink what the price of gold was and what the current currency rate was so that they could trade internally, because there was no access to the internet. And it just gives you a sense of how much it took Iran back into the dark ages by shutting down the internet. Someone says, can you tell more about the negotiation between Iran and the U.S.? Look, there has been a channel between Iran and the United States. And I can tell you this because I interviewed President Trump when he was here in October of last year. And I asked him if he had spoken with Iranian officials, and he had said that he spoke with Iranian leadership. We know that other officials like U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, for example, have connections not only to Iran's foreign minister, but to other top officials in Tehran. And so there are channels to convey both direct and indirect comments or concerns about the current state of affairs. But in terms of possible negotiations, President Trump said he's not interested right now in negotiating with them, just given the fact that they've killed so many demonstrators. And we heard last night on Special Report, Iran's foreign minister bashing U.S. foreign policy when it comes to negotiations, not just as it relates to the current tension, but also Iran's broader nuclear program that, while is destroyed and damaged as a result of the U.S. strikes, there is still knowledge and technology that the Iranians have, and nuclear scientists, and that's of concern to Israel and the United States, because they are worried that would lead to the production of a nuclear weapon down the road, or the rebuilding of Iranian nuclear facilities, enrichment sites, Fordow and Natanz, other places that were damaged or destroyed during the U.S. strikes. So the next question is, how are Oman and Qatar involved in the situation? There are reports they have spoken with the U.S. This is true. There are regional countries that continue to talk with the Americans, with the Iranians, with the Israelis sometimes. because these countries are not only involved diplomatically, but they are based in the region. And so it's in part something that could affect them if a broader regional war erupts. And that's part of the reason that they're involved, and they have continued to be involved as this story develops. Again, my name is Trey Yingst. I'm the chief foreign correspondent for Fox News. Whether you're joining on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, on X, be sure to share this video with your audience so they can learn more about what's happening on the ground in Iran. You can share, subscribe, follow, depending on the platform that you're joining us from. I'm going to take a few more questions here about the situation. We are in the Middle East. We are reporting each and every day on this story, and we'll continue to join you here where you are consuming the news. But of course, I would encourage you to tune into Fox News channel as we cover this story. There are experts who can provide analysis, our anchors who are interviewing guests from around the world and of course in Washington, and then our field teams who are on the ground gathering information, reporting. So I'm going to take two more questions here and then we're going to jump off. You can put your questions in the comments below about the situation in Iran. And so as these questions come in, a quick recap here. We are covering the fallout from the brutal crackdown on Iranian demonstrators over the past 2.5 weeks who have been protesting their government and the poor economic conditions across Iran. Someone asked, will the IRGC stay in power? We are not able to predict the future, but we can tell you that there are more than 90 million people in Iran. They have a variety of opinions about what should come next as it relates to this story, the demonstrations, and a possible American response. Someone says, is the blackout in Iran still active? If internet is back, could Iran institute another blackout? The blackout is still underway. It is very difficult to get information. Still, some videos and images are trickling out because people do have Starlink, or some people have actually left the country and have been able to provide new images and video. But it is incredibly challenging when you look at the situation when there is an internet blackout. There was a brief window earlier in the week where people could make international calls. And the way that we've been able to report is connecting with people online who have Starlink and then being able to call them or exchange messages to gather information about what's happening. So again, to conclude here, we are covering the latest as it relates to the protests in Iran and the fallout, the possibility of American action, and the posture right now in the Middle East. My name is Trey Yingst. I'm the chief foreign correspondent for Fox News. You can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, on X. Of course, be sure to follow Fox News. And wherever you are joining from, be sure to share this video with your audience. It will stay up after so they can learn more about the situation on the ground in Iran. And of course, tune in to Fox and Fox Business as we continue to cover this story from across the globe. Thank you again.